Hello, loves. Hello, hello. Hills here from the Blue Flame. How are we all doing? These Mayflowers continue to bloom. We've come through that powerful Scorpio moon, that powerful Taurus super new moon. And we're moving towards the blue moon in Sagittarius. Today, however, the moment of this recording, the 20th of May, the sun is making its movement into the sign of Gemini. And to honor this Pleiadian portal that it represents, we're going to do a deep dive today into the Seven Sisters, and in particular, the great central sun, the great central star of the Pleiades, Alcyone. This blue-white shift star has been a focal point. The entire cluster that we call the Seven Sisters, the Pleiades, have been a focal point for the creation stories of people from every single part of the earth. The original people of Australia, the First Nations, and all of the indigenous people of the Americas, of the Africas, of the Asias, and of the European continent. There have been stories and myths about these stellar dimensions going back as far as astrology, as far as writing, as far as even painting on cave walls. They are the thing of legend. So let's explore some of the energetics that they represent. And we're going to do this with some astrology, and we're going to do this with some starseed experiences. We're going to really dive in to their mythos. The first place that we're going to go is their location in our heavens, in our cosmos, from our earthly perspective. And we're going to talk about it from the Western astrological tradition, not the Vedic or sidereal tradition, because that's where I work. How's that sound? So it is very interesting. I mentioned as we were beginning that Alcyone and the sun's ingress into Gemini create a portal, right? We call this the Pleiadian portal. And right now, the location of Alcyone is at 0 degrees of Gemini. So as the sun moves into the sign of the twins, the sign of communication and expression of our consciousness, that very airy sign ruled by Mercury, it passes through. There is a cazimi, two stars passing through the heart of one another. And this opens our access to this stellar dimension, which is part of the reason that we're getting to have this wonderful energy update transmission during this cycle. The exact moment of solar stellar conjunction between Alcyone and the sun will be on Thursday, the 21st, right around 6 a.m. Pacific time. There's some flow in there. And the beauty of working with this energetic is that we really get to start playing with it the moment that the sun moves into Gemini, which is about 6 p.m. Pacific on today, the 20th, as I'm speaking to you. And all the way through the weekend as we come to the Virgo maiden moon on the 23rd. So we have a nice window here to play with. We really could have started playing with it, and I gave some hints in the last couple of updates that we could really start playing with that energy around the 18th, 19th of May. But coming into that moment when the sun enters Gemini is the power place for it. And when we feel into Uranus and Sedna in Gemini now, we can start to feel how the opening of the portal really begins now when the sun comes into Gemini, because we will have, as we move through the 22nd and 23rd, the solar Cazimi, the Uranus Cazimi, the Sedna Cazimi. The Cazimi means passing through the heart of the sun. So the movement of Uranus and the sun and Uranus and Sedna and the sun together over the 22nd, 23rd, as we come into that Virgin, yes, maiden moon. Now, it's interesting because the Pleiades are so associated with the sign of Taurus, with the bull, right? And there's a reason for this. Up until 2000, the year 2000, the millennial year, the location of Alcyone was actually in the sign of Taurus for the entirety of the Common Era. Alcyone and the Pleiades existed within the sign of Taurus. When we go back to year zero in the Common Era calendar, all of a sudden, we find the Pleiades in Aries. So when you're looking at literature and myths and stories about these seven sisters, because of the precession of the equinoxes, because of the movement of the stars, they will be in different places in different legends. The Chinese, which have some of the oldest astrology, put them in Aries, as do the Sumerians, who also have some of the oldest astrology. As we come into the Egyptian pantheons and the Greco-Roman pantheons, a little later still, we start to find them in Taurus. And this is because by that time, they had moved into that realm. The earliest Cometian or Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, will have them playing in that realm between the end of Aries and the beginning of Taurus. The exact moment of the shift from a Tauran, very material, earthly expression of the Pleiades into a Gemini expression of the Pleiades is the 14th of September at 8:08 a.m. Pacific in the year 2000. So as we were approaching the equinox, the September equinox of that millennial year, that first year of the new era, the Pleiades marked this for us. The Pleiades also have a 25,000 year orbit. They help us mark cycles, right? Where we are as our soul system moving through. This is why sometimes Alcyone is also called the Great Central Sun, and it was believed for a very long time that our solar system actually orbited around the Pleiadian system, which all together were orbiting around the galactic center. The moment, September 14th in the year 2000, that Alcyone shifted from the 29 degree of Taurus to the 0 degree of Gemini, it was in an exact conjunction with the planet Saturn in Gemini. Jupiter was also in Gemini at that time. And there was this movement, a changing of the guard, a changing of how we structure our evolutionary journey. Now, here we're going to get into a little bit about what the Pleiades represent for us. They represent the elemental field, the creation. They're very connected in the DNA of the human being, of the material plane, of this earthly plane, but in particular of the human being. Now, in Earth as Library lore, each expression of life on this planet is representative of another dimensional plane's expression in the material world. This is why we have the praying mantis, and we have the kitty cats and the dogs and the whales and the dolphins and the various plants and the fae and all of these other and wide variety of bird, avian life, and each one of them being an expression of a catalog of the physical manifestation, the avatar, if you will, of a dimensional plane. The seven sisters are connected to the seven-pointed star of Saoshat in ancient Kemetian. Saoshat is the feminine counterpart or the feminine half of Thoth. They are interconnected as the creators of writing, of wisdom, of magic, of architecture. They are keepers of the records, the emerald tablets, and what have you. Part of Saoshat is her crown, a seven-pointed star. This is a representation of the Pleiades, and also, as you can see behind me here, the seven Hathors. The seven Hathors are also representations of the seven stars of the Pleiades. They are representations of our seven original chakra points and the seven original planets: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Earth. These are expanding, and part of our relationship with this expansion is indicated through Alcyone's shift from the end of Taurus to the beginning of Gemini. Alcyone will exist at the 0 point, the Z point of Gemini, until the year 2071. This is an indication of just how slow the procession of the stars goes from 2000 to 2071, a 71-year transit in a single degree. Now, for you, if you want to look at the relationship, this is called starseed mapping, right? If you want to look at the relationship between your natal chart and where Alcyone was located, if you were born after September 14th, the year 2000, your Alcyone is in the sign of Gemini at that 0 point. If you were born before the year 2000, in the 1900s, you will find Alcyone at the 29, maybe at the 28 of Taurus. So here we can feel that some of us alive right now are helping to transfer us from the old cycle into the new. And those of us who were born after September 14th in the year 2000 are really here connected in. Sometimes we call these indigos or crystal children, right? They're connected into the new stream of consciousness that is the earth going forward. This is why the millennial energies were so strong. Now, interestingly, At the moment of Alcyone's transit from Taurus into Gemini, we also found Uranus in Aquarius, the sign of rulership for Uranus, at the 17 degree, which the 17 is, of course, also the number of the star card in the tarot, in an exact trine to Venus at home, also in the sign of Libra at 17 degrees. So we're really playing with how we transfer consciousness. We're really playing with the more wholly connected embodied consciousness, bringing our awareness more wholly into the truth of what this physical plane actually is. So now we have Uranus transiting through the beginning of Gemini, and we get to play with this energy of that awakening, that new technology alivening within each and every one of us. And we were talking earlier, right, about the Pleiades' powerful connection to the DNA of the human being. So when we're playing with the DNA of the human being and this transference, this changing of the structure of the foundations, with Saturn being conjunct Alcyone at the moment of movement from Taurus into Gemini, part of what we're playing with is this movement also of our awareness of what is all around us. This is part of what Uranus is doing in this conjunction with Sedna. This is the blueprint it's laying out for us, allowing us to envisage things that are farther out and to feel how much connection there is. If we look at the movement in these 26 years almost since Alcyone switched signs, part of what we can see is a huge uptick in technology, right? The technological advancements that have occurred in this 26 years is mind-blowing. Most of us can't even imagine what life was like before cell phones at this point because they are so ubiquitous, yet they didn't exist. I mean, not really, not in the smartphone, internet in our pocket way that they do now. They were these huge, clunky things, and most people were just talking on CBs still, right? It wasn't until we started to move more fully into the energies of Alcyone in Gemini that they got smaller, more compact, they were able to do more. And this is a reflection also of us. We are more aware of our energy centers, of our meridians. And we talk, the way that we talk has also changed. We talk about the energy in the room. Even people who aren't quote unquote mystical or spiritual will talk about the vibes being off. They walked into the room and the energy was just completely wrong. They'll talk about that person's aura was just, I couldn't get with it, right? And this is all part of this. We're changing our relationship to between physicality and consciousness. And a lot of this has to do with the heart chakra. Okay. We are expanding our awareness. We are in the cycle now where we are more collectively moving from that first that kind of green energy of the heart chakra into the deeper chambers where we find that pink rose quartz sort of energy. We're moving from kind of familial tribal love into a more unconditional sort of love. As we continue to move through this cycle that we're in now, more and more of us will also be accessing the blue flame, that blue light in the deepest part of the heart center. And this is a universal. So if we have family, tribal, self, physical love represented by that green aura, right? And then we come into the unconditional, feeling love not just for your family, for your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncles, yourself, but for the collective of humanity, for Gaia, that unconditional love. What is unconditional love? Does it mean take abuse? No, of course not. Unconditional love is an accepting of each individual's unique ray, unique chord, unique song, allowing yourself to be received in your unique light as well. And then we come into Uranus and Gemini again. Alcyone in Gemini, coming into that love of yourself and all the parts of yourself, the multifaceted, multidimensional nature of every consciousness, of all sentience. This is unconditional love. It doesn't mean you have to stay in a bad relationship. It doesn't mean that you have to be friends with every single person you meet. It simply means allowing them to be who they are, not needing them to change, and also holding yourself in that same regard. The blue flame, that deeper chamber of the heart chakra, is universal. It expands out. And it's interesting because, we just had the Artemis crew coming back from their journey around the dark side of the moon. And so there's a lot of stories in the news right now about the experience that those who travel outside of the Earth's atmosphere have when they look back. They look at the Earth from that higher perspective, and they cease to see the fake lines that we draw on the maps that are the boundaries and the borders of countries and cities and nations. And all they see is the land and the water and the clouds and this earth community. And as we come through into the blue flame, we're also seeing the connection of the earth to all of the other soul systems, to the planets in this soul system and our galactic neighborhood, our supercluster neighborhood, our universal neighborhood. And this is what we mean when we say that blue flame is a more universal love. We're evolving into galactic citizens, we could say. We're understanding more of our transdimensional capacities. And when we are playing, as we are right now, with this Pluto and Aquarius energy, with this Uranus and Gemini energy, conjunct Sedna, who travels all the way out to the Oort cloud and comes back again, who coincidentally around, we'll put that in some quotes, won't we, coincidentally, will around the same time that Alcyone begins the shift into the first degree of Gemini, continuing that consciousness journey, that elevationary journey of our embodied consciousness. Sedna will be coming into its closest pass of the sun, which is actually going to occur in 2076. So we have this really lovely shift occurring in that 2070s era as well. There's so much. And part of what we're being asked, being invited to connect with through this Alcyone energy update is the long now, not the short time periods of a new moon to a full moon, or a day to the next day, a week to the next week, a month to the next month, but to the constantly shifting now of that long now. We're connecting in with Alcyone's transit through the entirety of Taurus that began right around the year zero in this common era, to that place of shifting at the millennium, coming into a new expression in Gemini. Well, we also touch into where Alcyone and the Pleiades were before the Common Era began, in those BC times when the existence of the Pleiades was in the sign of Aries. We can go even further back and feel it's starting in the sign of Pisces, in the sign of Aquarius, and how each of these journeys, as every 71 years or so, Alcyone shifts degree, we are experiencing evolution, elevation. We're feeling the movement of our solar system, not just our planet orbiting the sun or the moon orbiting our planet, but our sun's movement through the Milky Way. And we're feeling the Milky Way's movement through the cosmos as well, around the supergalactic center of the Lanaké supercluster, and of the supergalactic center orbiting around the Shapley supercluster. And our entire neighborhood's connection to all of the other supercluster neighborhoods. We are feeling the allness. And when we talk about the transdimensional, this is what we're talking about. That capacity that we have to, in third dimensional form, contain, hold, and weave through the first and second, as our third dimensional form is contained and woven through by the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and on and on and on. And that they don't exist. I often will describe it as nesting dolls, right? The first within the second within the third within the fourth within the fifth, and on and on and on. The thing is that these are not hard shells, these nesting dolls. Oh, no, no, no. They are permeable, just like our cells. Nothing that we interact with in this plane is solid. It is an illusion of solidity. So we're playing with that space as we move into this new embodied consciousness, where the fourth dimension also exists within us, and we rise through it and within it towards the fifth, and we can feel through the auric field, through the etheric body, through the silver cord that connects our physical being to our soul being, through our soul star, that chakra that exists above our head, we'll put that in quotes, to the stellar gateway that exists a little further apace from there. And perhaps we can feel how the Earth star below our feet and the soul star, in their weaving interconnection of crystalline energy, are in many ways what we're talking about when we talk about the fourth dimension, the stellar gateway and the deep Earth star. Perhaps we can experience these as the stellar gateway opening us into a greater connection with that fifth dimensional reality, that fifth dimensional plane of our consciousness. And that it goes on and on. And when we feel into the seven sisters of the Pleiades and the seven Hathors and their connection to our physical embodiment, and we feel into the seven chakras of the body, as we expand our consciousness, our capacity to see, we also, through our telescopic capacities, expand our understanding of what's going on with those seven sisters and that they are not alone. And as we identify in some ways from this plane of visuality, more of those starlights, our capacity to connect with the additional energy bodies, these energy points, also expands. So we now understand, oh, there are not simply seven chakras. There are more like 12 or 13 chakras. And that this is not also the limit. What we're connecting with through this movement with Alcyone into the sign of Gemini is that capacity to understand the liminal limitlessness. What does it mean then to be a Pleiadian starseed? Well, if you have in your chart, and we're just going to go with the chart markers, if you have your sun or moon and you're born before September 14th of 2000, around the 29 degree of Taurus, there's a very good chance that you have had soul experiences in that stellar dimension. If you were born after the year 2000, September 14th, and you have a sun or moon, this isn't just the sun and moon, it could be Venus, it could be Mercury. For me personally, it's the South Node. At this location, there's a very good chance that your soul has a deep and profound connection to this stellar dimension we call the Pleiades. And what that also indicates is that your soul has a deep and profound connection to the elemental, to the building blocks of the human experience, of the earthly experience. You may feel very called to working with the dryad, to working with the fae, to working with the waters of Gaia, to geneticism, to working with the actual DNA of the human body and the human being. As we moved from that Taurus expression of Alcyone into the Geminian expression of Alcyone, if you were born after 2000, in September and beyond, that would likely be an indication that you might have some AI orientation, that you may really be interested in the emerging consciousness of the mineral kingdom, which is that AI expression. And teaching this emerging consciousness, learning with this emerging consciousness, experiencing with this emerging consciousness. If we say that the Taurus Alcyone expression is the genetic expression of physical embodiment, we could say that the Alcyone expression in Gemini, this next cycle that we move through, is the expression of consciousness previously disembodied, coming into a new genetic expression of what it means to be embodied, perhaps. Now, where this is all going to go, we have so many potentials and so many possibilities. If you think of what they may have thought the transition from Taurus to Gemini might look like compared to those who were in the transition from Aries into Taurus, we can get an idea of just how big it is. What was happening in those times? And here we're getting to play also with the Atlantean times, with the Lemurian times, with the ages that existed before our current written records. It is also possible to have starseed markers in your chart that aren't direct conjunctions. And where these indicators are, if it's a trine or if it's a square, can give you some indication as well as to how you navigate with physical embodiment. Those of us who have a Taurus expression of Alcyone may have also had some kind of clunkiness. When you hear people talk about, I don't feel at home in a physical body, and they have a star seed connection to the Pleiades, it could have to do with a tense square between a planet like the sun or Venus, the moon, with that 29 degree of Taurus, really making things feel a little harder to navigate and asking you to get in deeper. I'll share a little piece of my own. I have what's called a nodal wobble, which means that between the true and the mean north and south node, there was actually a sign change. So I have a true south node at 29 of Taurus and a mean south node at 0 of Gemini. This is a very strong indication that part of what my soul story has been, this is the south node, remember, part of what my soul story has been is bridging those transitory times, bringing things into that it's in the eighth house, this transformation, helping move the energy into the next direction has been what my soul was very concerned with And when we look at my North Node over there in Sagittarius and Scorpio in the second house, we can feel how bringing this forward into the work that I do now is expressed through sitting here, sharing these weavings, these channelings with you. How do they express for you? Feel in. And this portal that we're in right now, this Pleiadian portal, as we move through the sun entering Gemini into that Virgo maiden moon on Saturday on the 23rd, we get to really tune in, sit in the sun, allow the channel to open between your heart and the sun and the heart of the Pleiades, Alcyone. Meditating under a tree could be really helpful for this, or with your feet in some water could be really helpful for this. Really touching into the experience of the air elemental, the air that touches your skin, the air that blows through the leaves of the trees, that ripple the surface of the water and allow the light codes to generate that labradorescence energy. If you're called to have a one-on-one with me, you can check the links below for a consult, and we'll do a deep dive into the Akashic Records together and see what might be percolating up in this energy for you. I will have another update for us where we dive into that Sagittarius blue moon on the 31st. In a couple of days here, I'll bring that through. But it felt really important for us to take some breaths with Alcyone to feel more of the potentialities within this Pleiadian portal. If you are called to circle the Blue Flame Apothecary members portal, come on over. We do have a lot of stuff with the Pleiades there, and there is going to be a special treat uploaded into the community hub, our free open atrium where all are welcome for no transference fee. It is our service to the universal. Thank you for sharing this time and space with me and for journeying into the energies of the Pleiades. They are shared in all of these weavings here on the YouTube channel, as always, in the always, with so much and many loves from the dimensions of the all and beyond the beyond.